some of it, I think, is that women don't see many other women doing it. And it's the same thing, you know, with the STEM opportunities in schools, right? Getting women interested in the sciences and math. It becomes a numbers problem, and you need to see people doing it to say, oh, I can do that.
Well, hey everyone. Welcome to episode 388 of F-Stop, Collaborate, and Listen with your host, Matt Payne. This week on the podcast, I sat down and chatted with three incredible women who have banded together to create the Outdoor Photo Alliance, an outdoor photography organization which aims to elevate other photographers in our space. They are aiming first to provide a safe and comfortable space for other women interested in outdoor photography to learn from each other. And they are hosting a conference in Estes Park, Colorado at the base of Rocky Mountain National Park. The conference will be held this upcoming winter from February 6th through the 9th and should be an amazing experience. Listeners of the podcast can get $100 off their registration by using the code FSTOP100. Just go to their website, outdoorphotoalliance.com, to register. Let's show them the power of our community by supporting them in return. Cheers. Okay, let's get to this week's episode with Shanda Akin, Jeanie Sumrall-Ajero, and Martha Montiel.
Hey, Matt.
Thank you.
Hey, Matt.
How's it going?
We're good. We're awesome.
Nice.
I'm just going to quickly have y'all introduce yourselves, and then we'll dive into this amazing topic. And I'm going to kick it off over to Shanda first. So go ahead, Shanda.
Awesome. Hi. Thank you. I'm Shanda Akin, and I'm a full-time photographer in Durango, Colorado. And I live out on a farm with my husband. We're getting ready to actually make hay for real. I am a student actually studying Master's of Art degree in photography. So that's a new thing that's actually taking up a whole bunch of my life. But other than that, that's it. Jeanie?
I'm Jeanie Sumrall-Ajero, and I am I'm retired and doing photography because I love photography. I live in the northern foothills of outside of Fort Collins, Colorado. And in fact, I think we're all Colorado photographers. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I live with my husband, and we have a small teardrop camper that we love going camping in.
That leaves it to you, Martha.
That would be me. So, hey, Matt, thanks for hosting us. My name is Martha. We're all excited to be here. I'm based in Colorado. I am at the foothills of Colorado on the Front Range. I was born and raised in Mexico City. You can probably tell by my accent, but I love being in nature. So I do photography full-time, but yeah, because I love it. And that's it.
All right, pop quiz. What's your favorite chili pepper to cook with, Martha?
Oh, chipotle. Or poblanos. Actually, I don't have a favorite.
She's an amazing cook, though. I mean, yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
I love it. And for people who can't see this, Martha's last name is Montiel. Minor detail. And then for people who maybe just started listening to the podcast, definitely check out the episode we did with Jeanie, probably 2 years ago now. One of my favorite episodes.
Feels like two, yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you learn all about Jeanie's past, where she created this amazing business and all of the things that she learned about herself and photography through that process. So that was a cool episode. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's kick this episode off by having y'all talk about the Outdoor Photo Alliance. Tell us what it is, what the mission of it is, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah. So it's an alliance. So basically, and it's an association formed for a mutual benefit. So that's like the bottom, line. It's just we formed it for the mutual benefit of outdoor photographers, all walks of life, all ways, shapes, and form. Our mission is empowering connection and growth among those with an affinity for outdoor photography. So we included outdoor photography specific because there's a lot of stuff out there for people who do portraiture photography, and there's a lot going on in that world, but we're a little bit smaller of a genre, and so that's how our mission came about, and really what OPA is. There's tons of groups out there will just share whatever it is that they're promoting within their little group. And we believe that there's more to share. We want to share. There's photographers doing all kinds of fantastic things, and we want to provide a platform, to share some of those things. Not just be a site or a social media site where it's just sharing and they're building likes and building, followers, and that's all that happens. We're into sharing and not advertising, but for example, an amazing podcast that we hear, we want to say, hey, have you heard this Wild Women in Photography podcast? And we would love, to share that to different, groups. And so that's one thing. We want to support other photographers that are doing amazing things. So that's basically the bottom line.
We just want to empower women and empower photographers and get a community together to just go out and enjoy photography.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Well, let's get a little bit more specific. Mm-hmm. What are the different things that you're going to try to do through the Alliance?
So the things that we're doing through the Alliance, we're just in the beginning stages, the first couple of months, and we've already doing some incredible things, but bringing people together, that's kind of the bottom line. When we talk about connection and growth among photographers, bringing people together, providing opportunities for people to connect and grow. So those opportunities in the way of conferences and things that'll happen, in the future. We have a scholarship that we'll talk about, a little bit later. We do Photographer of the Week, which is kind of a newish thing. We want to hear about cool things that people are doing out there, and we want to share, their stories. So you can nominate a photographer any way, shape, or form. So OPA isn't women-centric. OPA is anybody and everybody. And so this is all OPA. And then we're actually writing some blog posts about some great things that photography community has available, such as recommended YouTube channels and podcasts and other articles. And for those two specifically, the YouTube channels and podcasts, we actually put out like a questionnaire. Hey, what kind of things are going out there that you guys recommend? And we got a bunch of feedback. And so that's one of the articles that we'll put out there. And it's not like the best this and the best that. It's just these are some cool things that are going on that we want to share and we want people to know about.
Didn't you know that if you don't put best and list of 10 things that no one will read it? No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Right?
Well, we've heard that, but we disagree.
It's going to be more, I think, like recommended YouTube channels.
This is what we
our
like.
Favorite, podcast.
This is what we like. Yeah, pretty much.
No, I love that. I think it's really important as photographers that we take an active role in promoting individuals or organizations or movements that resonate with us or that we want to elevate. And I think having that as the core part of your mission is really exciting. And that's something that I've really enjoyed about doing this podcast is I'm able to do that as well. So I think what you'll find, it's really fun and it pays back in spades.
Agreed.
Yep, and we've already seen that. We'll tell some examples, but connecting with other photographers is a win-win in so many ways.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd love to hear some of you guys' experiences as female landscape photographers and how those experiences have influenced the creation of the Alliance.
I'll start with that one. What's interesting is that we each came together in different ways. So my experience as a female photographer has been one of coming kind of from an engineering background. It wasn't my most immediate thing, but that's kind of the way my brain works. And so I attacked it as a technical pursuit. And luckily, I also have some creative and artistic experience, and it quickly became more of an artistic pursuit for me and a way of a creative outlet. But I found it very difficult to find like minds within like my local camera clubs, because a lot of them are ex-engineers. And so while I could talk the technical talk, it wasn't what interested me. And so it left me feeling not like an outsider so much, but fairly lonely in the space with what I was doing.
Makes sense.
Martha.
Well, and Shanda and I met at a conference a couple years ago. We also met Bree there. So through those connections, we built like our own little community. After that, I remember Bree sent us I think it was all separate, but like a message or an email. It's like, hey, do you guys want to go on a trip together? And we're like, yeah. So Shanda and I had met already prior to that. We met Jeanie at this trip, and then we met her sister Nancy. Bree and I knew each other, and then Michelle was there. So we had I think it was like 10 days of just photography. 7. Or 7. Maybe it felt like 10.
You wished it was 10.
Yeah, we did actually by the end of it.
Yeah, we had like great food, great conversations. We exchanged tips. We photographed. Like there was never any like worry about what somebody else was going to think about, or we didn't know how to do something. We would just ask, and there was like no fear, nothing. So it was like a really good experience. So I think that was one of the reasons that this alliance came about. Where like we wanted to repeat that experience, and we wanted other women to experience what we are experiencing, because we found that it's such a good group and a good connection, and we're able to just like shoot off ideas from each other, or we ask for advice, or we're like going through tough times and we just rely on each other.
Yeah, I would say in reference to that trip, it was a big deal for me to go. I had originally reached out to Bree because she had mentioned she was going to White Sands, and I had seen that she'd gone with other people in the past, and I knew her from online, and I said, hey, would you want company? And then that blossomed into her saying, well, what do you think if we invited a few more people? Now, I am a total introvert, like totally an introvert. And that is not usually something you say to an introvert. But somehow I trusted Bree enough to say, sure, that sounds like a great idea. So she reached out to other people that she had contact with. And I think we all just kind of trusted that she was going to choose, ask people that she felt would get along.
Yeah, because it started with connection. Had I not known Martha, had I not met Bree at that same conference and then connected through social media, maybe I wouldn't have been included, or I wouldn't have been invited. We wouldn't have known who each other were. So basically it all stemmed from connection, and then it grew from there. And it's just such an amazing connection. I'm more of a tomboy. I don't usually hang around too many women. So it was kind of scary for me to go, I'm going to go hang out with 6 women for a week. But it was amazing. It was awesome, and it was amazing. And I think it was the thing that I was looking for, because even here, I mean, I like to go on adventures, and I like to get off the highway, to photograph, and I love saving money. When I was in Europe, I would travel with friends, and that was incredible to be able to save money. And then you can save money in one trip, you can go on another trip, and then another trip, and another trip. So for me, if I could save money, on one, then it's another one. But not only that, it just worked so well with all of us. We have these relationships that wouldn't have happened, had we not connected, in some way, shape, or form. And we're walking away with, we've got sound photographers and people we trust that we can share our work with and get ideas from. We bounce ideas off of each other. We do reviews for each other. We look at portfolios. We're all doing kind of different things, which is also pretty awesome. We're not doing, all the same things. And that, I think that even adds to that level of interest. We're all kind of doing different things, and have different experiences. And it's just ended up being so amazing that we wanted this for other people, not just females, but, other people in general. We want, other people to be able to connect and have these opportunities that have just basically arrived at our doorstep through this amazing connections.
Yeah, I know, Shanda, we had talked a little bit on the phone about this, but I found that when I've spoken with a lot of women, outdoor photographers, they feel often somewhat isolated in terms of like not having other people that they can, go on trips with, or hey, you want to meet up to go do this thing or that thing? Whereas like a lot of men have like their kind of circle of friends, and we go off and do our adventures together and things like that. And I think some of that is just like a numbers game. Like there's just not as many women out there doing it. So like your odds of connecting with other women are lower than what it might be for men. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I've also heard from women that they feel a little excluded from kind of like the guys club or whatever. And so I'm curious if any of you have kind of felt a little bit of that, or...
I haven't felt excluded. That's just my experience. I've worked in a man's world 25 years in the Air Force, and then as a law enforcement person with 7% females. I never felt excluded, and I haven't felt excluded in the community, the photography community, as far as men and women go. So I personally haven't, but I know people that have, but I can't say that I have myself.
I was going to say, like, I haven't felt excluded, but I remember when I first moved to Colorado, I wanted to connect with other women photographers because I didn't know anybody because I was new to the state, and two, I didn't know any other photographers. So there was a lot of men that I could connect with, and I did, but it wasn't the same. So I kept kind of reaching out and trying to connect with other women, and for one reason or another, it just didn't happen, whether they were not interested or too busy or whatever the reason. So I was just going to go on my own, and I have no issues going on my own, but it's, it does get lonely. It does get, and you don't want to drag your husband all the time just because they're not into the same thing that you are. And even though they're willing to, you kind of I feel bad about, like, I'm like, hey, I want to go shoot the Milky Way. Can we get up at 2 a.m? He's like, okay.
You want to do what?
Yeah, so it's really hard. And then, like, I've done the Milky Way on my own, but it's always that nerve-wracking feeling that maybe somebody's going to be out there. And I've done it in Glacier, and, I try to do that in Teton, but it's better to have somebody with you than just talking to yourself, even though, nobody's listening to you. You'll be like, yeah, that weirdo's talking to herself, just trying to make noise. So, yes, I think it's better. I just felt like, and then there's always, like, I knew photographers that, mainly guys, who go on their trips or backpacking and things. I'm like, I want to be part of that. So it's not that we were excluded, but it was just, you're not part of it. So we kind of form now our own little group where we can do that together, and the guys feel safer. Not that we're going to be messing around with other guys, but it's just like we're surrounded by other women.
Yeah, I would say for me that I have never, what Martha just said, I've never felt actively excluded, but then you hear about the backpacking trips and that sort of thing, and you're like, well, gosh, I wish I had something like that. Mm-hmm. So I have never felt actively excluded, but also, like, even if I was invited on one of those guys' backpacking trips, I'm not sure I would want to go, because then I have the pressure of, okay, can I keep up physically? And it's a more difficult decision. I don't always feel like I can totally be myself. I wouldn't be as relaxed, and not just safety wise, but just personally, I feel like I put on a slightly different face when I'm around men than I do when I'm surrounded by women.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, that's probably how a lot of men feel too. Like, I've talked about this with a lot of my guy friends who are photographers. It's like, we have no issues having women around, but sometimes it's like, okay, I can't be the ridiculous version of myself as much. So,
I mean, that's a great point.
And I think, honestly, I would say the same thing about women. We don't feel like we can be our goofy selves. Like, there's always somewhat of a guard. So both of us feel like we can't really be ourselves. And it's not that we don't like the other people, but if you just want to be able to fully relax, it's a little bit easier if you're surrounded by the same sex, I think. Because, yeah, humor's just different.
And there's different things we can talk about, too, that we can talk about as females or, as guys. I think that it makes it uncomfortable if somebody of a different, gender is there. So, there's some interesting topics to talk about and laugh about.
I was going to say, sorry, I don't think it should be that way. We shouldn't feel like we can't go to be with the guys or with the girls, but it just happens that it's just like that. And hopefully that will change, right? Because, it should be, you're just with a group of friends and it shouldn't be feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So do you ever hear about guys saying they're nervous about going out shooting astro or backpacking by themselves? How often do you hear that?
I think it's a little less like spoken about publicly, but I know if you get talking with people one-on-one, they'll talk about being nervous or tell stories about situations where they felt unsafe and things like that. But I think it's probably less, I don't know, culturally normal for people to like openly share that they feel uncomfortable when they're alone, when they're a man versus a woman. So I think it does happen, but it's not necessarily talked about in the open as much.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can see that.
I mean, I know me personally, there's certain places where I don't feel super comfortable by myself, but other places where I'm not worried about anything. But usually I'm worried about other humans, like doing something stupid to me. So, and I think your risk as a woman and as a man are relatively similar. In some ways, like as a man, you feel like sometimes if I'm by myself and I'm driving around somewhere and you get approached by a group of other guys and you're the only one in your group, like that can feel really intimidating. So yeah, I get it too.
Okay.
All right, well, let's dive into the conferences. So I know one of the first things that you guys wanted to do as part of the Alliance is to organize a conference. Tell us a little bit about the conference, what the format's going to be like, and how will your conference perhaps be different than what has already been out there in the photography conference world?
So our conference is going to be different currently because there's only a few nature-centric conferences out there, for one. We did some research, just to make sure we understood, what was actually out there. The Light Chasers is in Canada, so that's, a big one. It's one of a well-known conference. Nightscapers, their focus is on astro. Out of Chicago, and they're conferences, but they're more like workshops and webinars. So really, we're the only ones within the U.S., an organization in the U.S., doing conferences that aren't like Imaging USA, and Pixels, and these other ones that are doing portraiture. So there's not a lot of actual landscape photography conferences out there. Ours will be similar in style in a regular conference. I mean, it's 9 to 4. We've got hours in the morning and hours in the evening so that people can go shoot, and we're not setting that up. We're not scheduling or organizing it so that we can allow people for it to happen organically, because we have, already our attendees that have signed up, some of them are very experienced photographers and all different, levels of photography. And so we're going to let that, happen organically. And there's so many places, to shoot out there that are really close. So it'll be easy to get out and do that. But we have an icebreaker the first night, so a social icebreaker. That'll be a lot of fun and kind of that opening, get to know each other. And then we'll have opportunities throughout the conference to get to know each other as well. And then that's pretty much it.
And what would you say the overall format for the conference is in terms of speakers and roundtable discussions and dinners? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
So it will be majority like 50-minute presentations for the speakers. We've specifically asked the speakers to talk about either something that they're passionate about or an inspirational subject, not as much how to. Except for the last morning, we're gonna do some post-processing type presentations. But for the most part, it's going to be 50-minute presentations, and then at the end of each day, so we'll have 2 panel discussions, and that'll be composed of the speakers that have been speaking previous that day.
We did a survey beforehand and put it out there and had a whole bunch of responses. What would they want to see at a conference? What types of things would you expect? And people wanted to connect. They wanted to meet other photographers and speakers. And then there was like a couple of different things that kind of equally matched, but editing was one of the next things. So the first thing, editing and learning. So through their inspirational talks, it'll be learning, but it'll be in different ways than how to do a focus stack or how to do, this. It won't be quite, how to. It'll be, in different motivational ways.
Yeah, we want to show, we want to inspire people with possibilities in case people haven't even thought about, oh, I could do that. Like storm chasing. We have a speaker coming, Jen Walton is coming to talk about storm chasing, and she started an organization called Girls Who Chase, and we learned about her and got really excited about what she's doing, so she's going to come. And then we've also asked the speakers to kind of be available outside of, their 50 minutes of speaking, just to interact with and connect. The whole focus for us really is connection. That's really what we're trying to focus on. And so we've asked our speakers to do that, and hopefully they get something out of it too, because we really are hoping that this is a supportive environment for everybody that's there.
And the speakers that we've invited were really quick to say yes. We even had people emailing us and contacting us through our website saying, hey, do you have speaking opportunities? So I think, people are pretty excited to be a part of it and to speak at this conference. So that was really exciting for us, I think, in return.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you're filling in a gap that's been missing for a while, especially, I know as a man, I can say that I've wanted something like this in terms of a conference that's more just meeting and greeting and talking and connecting and networking and all of that. But at the same time, I feel like you've tapped into even larger niche in terms of women who are feeling like they're missing that. So tell us a little bit about why you've decided to start off the conferences being women-centric.
I'll take that one. So even though the representation of women in landscape and nature photography has improved, we still feel that women are underrepresented in this field. And we know that women are just as capable as men and can be just as successful given the opportunity. So we want to create opportunities for women to go out there, to be inspired, to feel confident, to go out and shoot. And our lineup of speakers, as we said, are successful, amazing photographers who happen to be women. We feel like for the most part, women don't put themselves out there. There's a variety of reasons. One of them will be self-confidence, or not being as aggressive as men, or caring how we come across or how we are represented. Because we tend to be judged more harshly than men, even in this day and age. So we want women to have the confidence to go out and shoot, make connections, get together, network, collaborate, support, and lift each other up. We also know, and we knew this, but we know that women face specific needs, and we want to provide a safe platform and give them the space to discuss these things. We want to feel comfortable talking about issues like being outside, or women's health, or feeling brave, or facing any fears, or supporting each other without any judgment. I know when we were in White Sands, we all traded backpacks, and we wanted to see what backpack works for you or for me, or I'm short, so my needs are different, or we have boobs, so then that kids, it's an issue because we want to feel comfortable, and you're hiking with it, or the weight, or so all those things that you might not think about, but they come up. So peeing outside was one of the big things, how do you do it? So I know before I used to try not to drink water because I didn't want to have to figure out where I'm going to go pee, where that's not an issue for men usually. So we discussed, having a pee style. So actually they're going to be one of our sponsors, kind of in a way. But so we exchange a lot of ideas this way. So we want to promote women. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel confident and give them the opportunity to exchange ideas, to connect, to network. So that's why women-centric. I know we keep talking about we shouldn't separate women and men or be gender specific, but it's still, I think that we still need that, and it's progressing, but it needs a little bit more work.
I think also it gets back to what Shanda said earlier, and that is, we have had such a wonderful connection with the group that we did our trips with, that we want that for others. Yeah. And what we know is what we want, and I feel like some of what we want is because we're women. And so we decided to start with what we wanted and what we knew. Well, we knew a little. We'll get to talking about what it's like to plan the conference.
Anything you want to add to that, Shanda?
They pretty much, hit the the nail on the head. And it's not, I know some people do women-centric or man-centric or this, and it's to spite any other group, and that's absolutely, not the case. And so we don't want anybody, to think that we're not meeting up so that we can spite other groups or spite other people. It's really just another opportunity to grow each other in a certain capacity and in this capacity. And when we discuss, like, okay, which conference do we do first? Do we do a women's? Do we do a co-ed? Like, where are we going? With this, the women's is a little bit smaller. It's going to be more quaint, 100 people. And it's in Estes Park, which is incredible. And so for us, it felt like a good starter to get this first conference, under our feet or a belt or whatever you say, so that, the next thing can be a bigger one. And we've got, all this experience and checklists and agreements and all this legal stuff behind us, so that a bigger one where we may bring other people in can actually be a little bit easier. So it felt like this was a great, way to kind of make the mark to open up for us.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's the Outdoor Photo Alliance is not the Women's Outdoor Photo Alliance.
Right. And we did run the risk. I mean, I think you and I even talked about it at one time. Like, if we start with a women's conference, is it going to push men off, like, oh, Outdoor Photo Alliance is about women? And, maybe some people have that feeling. But we get feedback all the time. We have subscribers who are men. We have followers who are men. We have men writing articles about Outdoor Photo Alliance with their newsletters and stuff. Men that we've connected, with at different other conferences and summits and stuff that we've met and interacted with. And so the feeling that we're getting is that it isn't pushing, for the most part, unless people aren't just saying it, not pushing men away from the potential in the future.
When approaching sponsors, when I talk to different sponsors and, mention the conference, they all seem very excited about it, because they say, like, we really need this. There's nothing like this out there. So, and we love it that it's in Colorado. So people are excited about it, to have like a women's landscape and nature photography. We know that you guys are doing like a lot, Matt, like with NLPA, you guys try to promote women and elevate women, and but it's, so I think people like it that we're putting a women's conference first.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take a huge risk here, and with the caveat that this is I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
Because I'm trying to channel some of what some listeners might think or hear or be thinking about in terms of when they're hearing you guys talk about this. And Martha, you said something to the tune of, that women don't have the same opportunities that men have when it comes to outdoor photography. And again, this is just devil's advocate, so don't throw something or just disconnect or whatever. But like, the trails I hike on or the roads that I drive on, like, there's not like a sign that says no women allowed. It's like, if the opportunities are there, if women want to take them. So what do you feel like is holding women back in terms of feeling like they don't have the same opportunities that men have to capture photos outside?
Well, okay, some of it, I think, is that women don't see many other women doing it. And it's the same thing, with the STEM opportunities in schools, right? Getting women interested in the sciences and math. It becomes a numbers problem, and you need to see people doing it to say, oh, I can do that. I'll tell an example of, I went to a Nightscapers conference and knew of another photographer who was very leery about going out photographing on her own. And after that conference and seeing a whole bunch of women speakers getting up and talking about going out at night and what they do for safety precautions and that sort of thing, it completely changed this person. She's now out camping by herself and going out on trips by herself, and she never would have done that if she hadn't seen heard other women talking about it. Now, granted, that was a co-ed conference. Sure, you could get that at the same thing. You can get that kind of thing with a co-ed conference, but it is a numbers game, and having all women and women support one another and saying, yeah, you can do it. I mean, when the six of us get together on our trips to White Sands or whatever, it's a very supportive environment. It's not competitive at all. It's collaborative, it's supportive, and that's what we're trying to engender in the conference.
Well, anything you want to add to that, Martha or Shanda? Or you're like, we're good.
We're good. Yeah, good, Jeanie. I mean, it's good to have role models, right? Like, you want a woman president. You want little girls to look up to somebody and they're like, yeah, I can do this. She's doing it. I can do it too.
Perfect. All right. So why have you decided to host the conference in Estes Park in winter?
Jeanie, tell us about Estes Park.
I'll tell you about Estes Park. Right up the road from me. When we were trying to decide, well, first of all, like we said, we wanted it to be Colorado-centric, our first one, since we're all from Colorado. And when we thought about where to have it, we thought Estes Park would be a great place because it's right outside of Rocky Mountain National Park. And I personally love going to Rocky in the winter. There's less crowds. There's no timed entry. You can go whenever you want. Yes, it can be cold, but there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing, right? So, and we'll share that with our attendees. In fact, we're thinking about doing a little webinar maybe on how to stay warm in photographing in the winter. But Estes Park it has a conference center. It's kind of set up for this kind of thing. And it's very easy access, as I said, into Rocky and just the surrounding area. You don't even have to go into the park. All of northern Colorado is really quite beautiful. No guarantee, obviously, of what the weather's going to be. When we went to check out different venues in Estes, we got almost no photos. I don't know that that's good marketing, but but we had a blast. It was we had like sideways blowing snow. It was hilarious, actually.
Awesome experience.
Yeah.
Just to experience that. I mean, if you've never experienced it, is something, right? So no promises on the photos, but really all along in Rocky, and then down there's the Church on the Rock, I think.
There's wildlife.
Chapel on the Rock. And wildlife, really some really beautiful birds, and the elk will mostly be down. They won't be as much in the park. They might be in Estes Park, but they come down to Loveland and Fort Collins, mostly Loveland in the winter.
You have a lot of frozen lakes too. So we did a lot
Many
of that.
frozen
we were
lakes.
Dancing on the lakes and like trying to take like small photos, and there's a lot of opportunities.
Really a welcome to Colorado. I mean, when you think Colorado, it's welcome to Colorado. And the thing is that the shooting opportunities they're easy too. So it's not like you have to be going for hours and miles. I mean, they are pretty close. There's a lot of shooting opportunities really close right there. So people can kind of make decisions on how far out they want to go. And there's some that are pretty close to their cars, so they don't have to venture out, so far for those people who aren't used to the cold or, not so sure about it. There's several different, opportunities to get out and shoot in that way. It's beautiful. I mean, winter, I know not everybody's a fan of shooting in winter, but there's fireplaces and hot chocolate and hot toddies and all kinds of stuff happening too. So, yeah.
I was going to say, I've only gone to Rocky Mountain National Park once for photography specifically, and it was in winter. And I snowshoed to Dream Lake, and it was awesome. So it is an awesome place to photograph in winter.
Yep. It can be amazing.
Like on that trail.
It's magical.
Yeah, on that trail, you can hit like several lakes. So, there's a lot of lakes.
Yeah, you start at Bear Lake, and then you go to Emerald Lake, and then you go to Dream Lake.
Yeah, it's great.
There's Nymph Lake in there somewhere.
It's not that far, really. I mean, I don't know. I feel like even if you're not super, super athletic, you can get up there with some snowshoes.
Yeah, it is high elevation. So you'll be starting that hike. You start at like 9,500 feet.
Yeah.
But just give yourself time. And it's totally doable. It's not, unless there's been like 3 feet of snow or something. Those trails are traveled all the time, and they're usually packed down. And if there hasn't been fresh snow, you can do it with spikes. You don't even need snowshoes, and that just feels like regular hiking. But if you're lucky, there'll be snow, and like coming out of the sky, because that's like you just feel like you're in a snow globe. It's the most awesome thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this was even before I was super into like intimate landscapes. And I remember photographing snow that was falling off the trees and stuff like that. I mean, it was super fun. So it's a cool hike. And you know,
sometimes
like you said,
the way the snow pastes itself onto bark on one side, that's really interesting. It's awesome.
And
all
snow
the
makes
ice,
everything clean.
It does, yeah. And the way that it happens, everything freezes so quickly that the ice is more clear than like our area in Durango. It takes, a long time. It becomes that kind of hazy ice. So
milky,
it freezes really quick. It's windy enough up there. It's, beautiful ice formations and shapes. And that's a lot of fun. So, even just get out, you could spend hours just on a lake looking for very cool, ice shapes and small scenes. It's amazing.
Yeah, and there's small streams just about everywhere, and sometimes those are completely covered up with snow, but sometimes there's openings and you get some really interesting ice and snow formations over rushing water, and it's really fun.
Yeah. All right, so I know you guys touched on this a little bit earlier, but I would love for you to talk a little bit more about kind of who you've chosen for speakers and how their topics will be different than what we typically expect at a photography conference, which is usually like talking about a technique or something like that.
Okay. We've asked the speakers to not do technical how-tos. We have not yet received all of their, any of their topics actually, because I'm really leaving it up to them to be inspired. For example, I think, is it Charlotte Gibb that is doing something like people in the parks, but they're like long exposures so the people are blurred? I think it's Charlotte that's doing that. I don't know if she's going to talk on that. I don't know if she's ready to do much presenting on that, but things that are personal projects, things that they're personally interested in, I find very interesting, and I have to believe that others do too, because that's unique and it's something different that you don't really see out there on social media as much. So we've got Sarah Marino, which I think everybody knows and loves. Sherry Mabey is a fairly new, she's not a new photographer, but she was fairly new to me when I started looking for Colorado photographers. She focuses on infrared, which I've recently gotten into and absolutely love. So I'm very excited to hear her talk. And she is Colorado based, and she's in I think it's called Gallery 6 down in Denver in the Arts District. Jen Walton, I already mentioned, who is a storm chaser and founded Girls Who Chase. Franca Gabler, and both she and Charlotte are out in California, live near Yosemite, but they both have very different approaches, I think. So I'm really curious to see what they come up with. Suzanne Mathia, we've asked her to speak on Photoshop since she is an Adobe certified expert, so she'll be speaking on the last day. Beth Young, who, oh man, her photos for me just are bright and cheerful. She works a lot with healthcare settings. A lot of her photos are in healthcare, and she really believes in the power of nature imagery to help in the healing process. And so I'm hoping that she talks on that, because I think that would be really interesting. Michelle Sons, she's one of the 6 of us that first met in White Sands. She does a lot with soft light and fog, and she's wonderful. And so we invited her to talk. Dawn Wilson, who actually lives in Estes Park, she focuses mostly on wildlife, I believe, in the higher elevations, and certainly in cold elevations. So she does both Rocky, but also Alaska, and she's also does wildlife trips down to South America. I'm not sure what she's going to talk about yet, but maybe she'll talk about the wonderful area of northern Colorado in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Well, and she does have a book that she's published about, like 1,000 things to do in Estes Park.
Only 100, but 100 things to do in Estes Park.
But she's our Estes Park expert, so having her on board was just, they kind of put everything together. It was
she's wonderful.
Yeah,
and I would say about half of those folks have been on the podcast in the past. So if like Dawn Wilson was on, Beth Young has been on, obviously Sarah Marino's been on a couple of times. Still trying to get Suzanne Mathia to come on. So thank you for mentioning that.
Sure. We will. Yes, we're putting another plug for that, Suzanne.
They all kind of
awesome.
do different things. They have, some of them do, galleries, some, got a book and ebooks and small scenes and IR. So it's really a broad range of kind of a little bit of everything, and so much creativity behind, every single one of these speakers, which is pretty awesome. We've got not only photography, but they're scientists and mothers and explorers, and
Beth is an architect.
Yeah, it's amazing, other than photography, how incredible these speakers and our attendees are. So that's going to provide for some really interesting connection and social.
One more person that we were hoping, or not a person, but like somebody who's to speak up about how to present to your work to magazines and stuff. So we were looking for somebody
We're
like
still
that
working
as
on
well.
that.
Yeah, but we want to be able to show women how to present their work to a magazine or a publication.
Maybe you could ask Charlotte Parkin. She's kind of like the editor for On Landscape, which everyone thinks is run by Tim Parkin, but really Charlotte's the brains behind.
Isn't she in the UK?
She is in the UK, but just saying.
So noted.
We're still very
Anyway, so I get it. So do you guys have the conference filled up, or how close are you to filling the seats?
Not
We
yet.
do not yet have it filled up, but that's one of the reasons we are glad that you have had us on so that we can spread the word.
We started far enough out that we have lots of time. But yeah, they're
We
coming
have a
in.
lot of people who are interested, and they're probably just waiting a little bit to get the ticket. Not everybody is a planner, but there's a lot of people who have signed up for newsletters. Like, we're interested in the conference, so we have interest. We just have not filled it up.
So maybe that's a good segue to talk a little bit about what it's been like. What are the challenges of creating a conference from the ground up?
So it's been challenging. There's always challenges when you start something new, right? And one of the most important things to have is like especially if you're teaming up with others like we are, is like to have a good group of people that you trust. Our personalities align and complement each other. We're able to discuss openly, and we don't hold secrets, but we also sign legal contracts and stuff we have all those in place to protect us. I think one of the bigger challenges is that we're virtually unknown, so people don't know what to expect from us. We're hoping to change that, but having the support of speakers and sponsors has helped maybe give confidence, so other people can see like, oh yeah, they're real, they're legit. And yeah, we received a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about what we're doing. So that kind of pushes us forward to know that we're doing the right thing. I think I mentioned earlier when I spoke with sponsors, they're pumped. Some of them are not able to make the decisions themselves, but they're all excited, and there's a lot of people who want to be part of it. Like the speakers, like they all jumped. They're like, yeah, we want to support you guys. We want to do this. This is needed. So, but yeah, it's difficult when marketing. Like I don't think any of us has any idea how to do marketing, and none of us like to put ourselves out there. So there's some struggles.
I have been doing less and less social media, so that makes it difficult to market.
Yeah.
Social media is hard. I mean, unless you have a massive,
right,
huge following, it's almost a waste of time. I hate to say it, but that's the way I feel about it.
No,
I will say though that a lot of the people that signed up we're following each other in social media, and I mean our first ticket sales happened even before we put out the tickets were on sale. So I mean, it is getting out there through social media, but we're not experts at it. We're probably not doing everything that we need to as social media. It's definitely a learning experience because marketing in general has changed over the years.
Well, and if you've talked to people who do social media management for a living, they'll tell you right now nobody knows how to do it. It's it changes like every week. Everything is different, so it's really hard.
Yeah. So we kind of count on people to spread the word, or like, the speakers like talk about it, or, attendees who are excited about it, talk about it. But yeah, it's a learning opportunity, but we are all happy to do it. We meet weekly.
We've got a few thousand listeners. So my challenge for listeners is to send a message to somebody that might be interested in the conference. And I guarantee by the end, you'll have at least half the conference filled up just by our awesome listeners, hopefully. So
thanks, Matt.
The gauntlet I'm throwing down.
We're providing a code for for your listeners. So we'll do FSTOP 100.
Hey, sweet. There we go.
Yep. There you go. $100 off.
Nice. Yeah. Well, just for our listeners. So there you go.
Yep.
Or anybody they tell about it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they don't have to maybe be listeners, but that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, well let's shift over into the scholarship. I think that is something that people will be interested to hear about. So tell us about the scholarship that you're working on through the Outdoor Photo Alliance.
Yeah, absolutely. In our our fashion in the OPA way, we call it to bring other people up and including others. We decided it would be an awesome thing to invite a younger person that we give a ticket and lodging to. So we've opened up 14 to 17. So for the women's, it's going to happen in the future as well. But for the women's, age 14 to 17, female, they have to have approval by their parent or guardian. We would like for them to be chaperoned by a parent or guardian, and it can be a male or female. If it's a female and they want to attend the conference, they can. If their dad or a mentor or something else comes with them, we're going to provide a double occupancy room, and a ticket, and then some of the meals that we provide throughout the whole conference. All of that will be included. There's a link on our website at outdoorphotoalliance.com, just right at the top. And there's it's pretty simple. There's a few questions to fill out, and then there's a mini portfolio that we're asking to be sent to us. And our cutoff for all of that is in October. So after school gets back in, and we can start reaching out to schools and stuff again. We hope that the word will get out and we can find some more of those people. It's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, for some young person who's interested in this field to be exposed to so much, for a couple of days, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. But yeah, so applications are out, and then once on 15 October is the deadline, and then after that we'll do like a little board, and we'll make a selection, and then we'll announce the person who got selected.
Good deal. Well, I've effectively run out of questions. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about?
What I did miss, and it probably is too late now, there was a couple of points we wanted to bring up, like why a conference, that I think were important.
Just do it now.
But one of the things with conferences is, we're a technologically driven, world right now. There's so much, connection on social media and Zoom and webinars, but there's a big problem. I mean, we're humans. We need that personal connection, that physical connection. We yearn for that human response. And so this is part of our answer as well, not only because we've had such a good experience, but that's something that is needed. We need to get back, to that personal connection, that human connection, and experiences. So when you walk away, when you spend 4 days at this conference, you're going to get more out of it than you will in any other webinar or Zoom, you're going to walk away with experiences, relationships, laughs, stories, things that you've learned, connection. I mean, there's so much to gain. There's nothing else out there where you can spend those few days and get more out of it. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and it was on friendship and connection, and how loneliness is literally an epidemic in this country right now. Potentially up to 60% of people identify as lonely, and loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and it's worse. It's a higher risk than either obesity or a sedentary lifestyle. And yet nobody's talking about it.
And so there's no way that the three of us would have made the connection had we not connected in some other way. And when we got to the end of our first trip together, and the end of that 7 days, we were all like, we had no idea that this is what we needed. We were all a little leery going into it, and came out of it just that connection and the relationships. It reduces the stress hormones in your body. It literally works on your physiology in a very positive way. And I would say that even if you're an introvert like me, it's still really critical. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah, we had a trip to White Sands, and I wasn't sure I was going to make it, but making that trip was crucial to my inner health. So I think it's just like the connection you kind of forget, and then you're surrounded by supportive people. So I think it's, like Jeannie says, it's vital to our health. Just online doesn't give you the same feeling. Like you just, I know that when I watch online conferences, I tune out. Even though I want to learn, I get so tired that I'm watching, but I'm not really listening. So I think it's necessary.
When's the last time you walked away from a webinar with people's names or plans, like, hey, let's meet up, or man, I met this person, Martha, there in Colorado. I might have to reach out to her. What webinar or Zoom or anything do you walk away from with an experience to tell your husband? If my husband asked me what happened in those 3 days, I mean, there's not an experience to share. There's not stories to share. No hugs. I mean, would you rather hug Franca Gabler, or would you rather, watch her, online? I mean, there's just so much more, to that physical showing up and being present, and just putting yourself out there and just showing up. I mean,
we're very huggy.
There's so much more.
To your point, Shanda, I feel like it's worth saying that for people going to conferences, I would encourage folks to really put themselves out there and try to leverage the experience as much as possible, especially for an introvert. That's something I personally haven't really done a great job of when I go to conferences, is like really sitting down and connecting with people on a much deeper level in terms of like making future plans and like trying to find ways to collaborate with others. And it's one thing I would say I'm impressed with Bree. I know like she goes to conferences and she makes all these connections and then like actually does something with it. So I think it's important to like push yourself a little bit, right? Get outside of your comfort zone, and because it can really take you really far if you allow it to.
It creates a lot of opportunities. We all went to Lone Pine with Bree and a whole bunch of other people. We met in Death Valley with other people, and just meeting those people in person, there's probably 90% of them I knew from online, and I talk to people online easier than I talk to them in person. But meeting them in person was so great because we were able to connect at a different level, and it's just, you walk out feeling great. Hey Matt, so do you consider yourself an introvert, and do you prefer going on like in-person conferences? I'm not putting him on the spot. Or online.
He's a social guy, according to his Colorado Trail.
Oh, I'm very
point,
Yeah, I'm social. I'm very outgoing, but I also, if it's a group that's larger than like 3 or 4 people, I become more introverted. So it just depends on the format. Like, especially like a conference or something like that, I become very introverted and shy because it's like so many people. But if it's like a group of 5 or 6 people, I'm very extroverted. So it just depends on the scenario.
Do you have to know people to feel comfortable, or do you, like, if it's like a 5 group of people that you know, or 5 group of people that you don't know, does it make a difference?
I mean, obviously it's easier if you know somebody, but yeah, the size of the group is what makes more of a difference for me.
Sure.
I mean, it makes a huge difference for me too, usually about 6 people. And yet, here I am organizing a conference for 100 people.
But that's what makes it great, though. Our personalities are very different.
Yeah.
And our experiences with that, is very different. I can handle a little bit and then I'm done. Like I get maxed out. I have a little, a meter of socialness and then I'm done. But we all have different, levels. So I think we can, people can connect with that, and we can, we understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, even our first trip, we did a Zoom call before we all drove down to White Sands, and I let everybody know, hey, I might need to go lock myself in a bedroom for a while, and it has nothing to do with you guys. Mm-hmm. I just need to do that for my mental health. And as it turned out, it was such a great week that I didn't do that once. But we do totally understand. And, a true introvert may be a day at the conference and be like, I just need to go to my room. I really can't socialize right now. And we totally get that. There's no judgment at all. But we're going to try to make it such that people feel comfortable connecting in smaller groups in some way, and don't feel left out and feel like that they can make connections. And I guess the other thing I wanted to say that I don't think was clear on this trip that we did, the White Sands, when we went out to White Sands, we were not all standing in a group, all shooting the same thing. Oh, yeah. We spread out everywhere. Mm-hmm. We were all individual and said, okay, we're meeting back at the cars at this time. And we would go do our own thing, because landscape photography often is a solitary and creative process, and you want to be by yourself to experience where you are. But then coming back, there was the camaraderie happened back at the Airbnb where we were staying, and we could have discussions about photography or discussions about life, discussions about our experiences, and share things like that. So that's how those trips went for us. And I think one thing that really helped was we all respected each other's personalities, really. Mm-hmm. There was no judgment. Everybody really could be authentic, and that really made a huge difference. And so we're hoping to create a space for people to be authentic.
Yeah, it's interesting. So every year, probably since, I want to say like 2013, I've been doing fall photography trips with a close group of my friends, and the group has kind of like expanded a little bit over the years, but it's taken us a while to kind of become comfortable where we make plans and spend most of the week together, or 2 weeks together, versus like early on it would be like maybe one night we'd share a campfire, but everyone would kind of spread off and do their own thing after that. Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting because like adding new people into that group, it's always been like everyone's hesitant to add more people, because it's like it changes the dynamic of the group, and like you're not sure if they're gonna fit into the group and things like that. But one thing has always been true is that almost always we kind of all individually go off and do our own thing, photography wise, and then we'll come back and share the campfire and talk about what we photographed, maybe do some chimping, look at each other's photographs, and like get really jealous of Jimmy Gekas and the photos he took, and why weren't we with him, because those photos are so much better than anything we took, which happens every single time, by the way. But that's really the fun part of it, is like that social connection and kind of getting inspired by how other people see the landscape and things like that. So
yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about having women in your group?
I mean, we've invited people before, but like it just hasn't worked out. All right. Well, I think we're done. So this has been really fun. I'm excited to see what you guys do with Outdoor Photo Alliance, where you take it, what happens next. We won't even talk about that, but it's exciting. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
So there might be a backstory there.
So
stay tuned.
That's right. Stay tuned. So thank you all for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you sell out your conference.
Thanks, Matt. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
It's good to see you.
You too. Well, thank you to Shanda, Jeanie, and Martha for joining me on the podcast this week. I hope listeners will appreciate the work that these awesome ladies are putting into elevating our community, both men and women alike. Please do show them your support and sign up for their newsletter, or better yet, by signing up for their conference in February. This sort of alliance is really needed in our space, and I'm personally happy to support it in any way that I can. If you value the idea of uplifting others in our space, I can also use your help. If this conversation resonated with you and you love what we're doing here on the show, please show me some love by either leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or by supporting the show financially on Patreon or PayPal. I'm leaving links to both options in the show notes. P.S. If you're on YouTube, you can also like, comment, and subscribe. Cheers. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for stopping in, collaborating with us, and listening. See you next week.